After Hours.
On this episode of the History of the Corps After Hours podcast, we discuss the Chicago, Illinois band known as Arma Angelus. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at IsSurvivedByPro for news and the latest episode postings. And make sure to subscribe to the show. Leave us a 5-star review and write us a comment on YouTube or whatever podcast service you're using. And if you'd like to see us do some live streams, leave us a comment or tweet us the keyword stream. Now, without further ado, let's start the show.
The devil is in Atlanta. Army surrounded.
Welcome back to the History of the Corps After Hours podcast, where each and every episode I, Curtis, groove along with my good friend and groovy listener to the History of the Corps podcast. Eric, what's groovy, Eric?
Music's groovy. We're grooving right along.
Music. So good. So good. Yeah. All right. Cool,
Got that
man.
pop punk thing going. Got my
Yeah.
pop punk. Keep calm.
And what was it?
Don't
Fake
you
it.
fake it.
Don't you
Fake it.
bang it. Red jumpsuit apparatus.
Red jumpsuit. Absolutely.
Alrighty, man. Let's talk about a little grooviness, shall we, Eric? A little grooviness in your band spotlight today.
Oh yeah.
Take it away.
Oh,
sorry, that was kind
I'm
of
just moving along.
no, you're good. That was kind of a bad handoff on my part. So anyway, take it away, Eric.
Handoff fumbled. And here we go. So it's called a high wire. Definitely would call them kind of that pop punk thing. In points, they'd make me think of things like Fall Out Boy and stuff like that. I mean, it's very pop punk. It's new, but it doesn't necessarily feel like new pop punk. Like, I don't know. There's new stuff's a little different. This feels good, solid, timeless, if that makes sense. I hope it makes all the sense.
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
They are a 4-piece where almost every one of them sings. So if that clears up
Okay.
any of the confusion of what you're hearing, everybody but one guitar actually sings.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of that call and response type singing going on in certain songs, which I always enjoy that. Almost always.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
They were formed in 2012 in Chicago, Illinois. They signed to. We got more cats in the recording studio here. It's Adventure Cat this time, though.
Whoa.
They signed with them in 2020, and they released their 2 EPs with them, and they were back-to-back EPs, almost like a A-side, B-side kind of thing, and part 1, part 2. But now they're included on their alumni page. You good?
Yeah, sorry, I was looking at a picture of them.
Oh. But yeah, they're included on their alumni page now. So I don't know if they're free agent floating around looking for something new. They were touring on their Facebook page, best I could tell, as late as November of last year. This is the last time I've
Yeah.
seen them posting on there, which not every little band posts about every little thing. These guys are kind of infrequent posters from going back and looking. So
That was
hopefully they
weird.
haven't gone dark.
That was weird. For a second there, I don't know what that was. It sounded like, like when you'd be on the phone back in the day, your corded phone at the house, and like if somebody else picked up the phone and they hit a number, you could hear like the dial like beep, boop, beep, beep, beep. It sounded like I heard somebody hitting one of those numbers. That was really weird sounding. Anyway, sorry, I got really distracted there. On your record label thing, I will say their newest single, which came out this year in February 2024, it says Pacific Ridge Records.
Oh, okay.
So maybe
So
that's what
they,
they're
like I
on
said, they
now.
released those 2 back to back on Adventure Cat, and then they're on their alumni, so they must be with them now.
Yeah. Okay.
Which that's interesting to me.
What's yeah, okay, so they've been around since what did you say 2012? Is that what they say? Yeah,
2012.
2012. So no full-length album. At least it's I see on Spotify. We've
If
run
you
into a
take
couple
both
of
halves of that EP,
yeah.
mush them together, you get pretty much A side, B side type album.
Okay. Yeah. We ran into this with the Clock Strikes Midnight. Is that what they're called? When the
When
Clock
the clock
Strikes Midnight?
strikes.
Yeah, When the Clock
Yeah.
Strikes.
Not midnight. Just no midnight. No midnight.
Is it 7:30? No.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm almost kind of like, okay, wait, is this a band that maybe not so much of like When the Clock Strikes, because it sounds like when the Clock Strikes was more of like, hey, we're putting out like singles and EPs. Maybe it's a deal like, hey, we're kind of older, we got families, we got day jobs, we don't really tour, but we'll be that band that's here in town. When you come to town, we'll play a show with you, we'll be
right.
your opener, which is cool. It's cool. We talk about in these short bands histories, sometimes a band only needs to be around for 1 or 2 albums for good or bad reasons. Sometimes we need
Right.
bands like this that it really is kind of a hobby for somebody to make music with their friends, but to not really go on tour, or at least, a big broad tour, but to be a band that's, hey, I'm here to be your opener in this town that I live in, or whatever. So I almost kind of wonder if that's what this band is kind of, maybe, but maybe not.
I
Because you said they've been out
a
on
lot of
tour
their
though, right?
Facebook. A lot of their Facebook posts seems like they were sticking around. Oh, did I even say where they were from? Chicago. Yeah,
Chicago.
they
Yeah.
were in the Chicago, Illinois area.
Okay.
So
So they're at
I
least
don't know if
staying
they're,
close to home.
from what I've seen on Facebook. I didn't go back years and years to see if they'd ran a
Right. Yeah.
full country, which I'm sure they had at least one countrywide tour. I mean, most do.
Well, and you would think that maybe
So
maybe at a certain point they started out, hey, we're really hoping to make something out of this, and then maybe you get to a point where you're kind of like, because here's the other thing too, first EP 2015, then you get another one in 17, then you don't even get a single until COVID 2020. You don't get
mhm.
that part one EP of 2 parts until 2021. So maybe you kind of hit a lull there in between 17 and 20 where you're kind of like, maybe our lives are kind of changing. Maybe hey, 2017 EP was called Different Places. Maybe our lives are in different places right now, and we can't really do what we originally wanted to do. But hey,
Right.
maybe we can still do this, but just kind of shift a little bit in our direction. Did you like that? Did you like that? that's for the video listeners there. Anyway, I don't
That's
know.
audio visual.
Yes, I do like this band, but I bring up what I was saying about them and like When the Clock Strikes, because I do like
Right.
that. I feel like that's more something that, like, I'm just now kind of discovering a lot of bands like that, but I feel that's kind of more, it feels like something, it's a new trend where it's like, well,
Right.
I can really have both, because where it's like it used to be, it's either I got to go get a job and a career, or I can go do this music thing and tour all the time, and maybe I'll make it. More likely, I won't, and I'll have to come back to that job or career or whatever. Now it seems like, well, I
Right.
got to have this, but I can still kind of do this because it's a little more accessible to do all this stuff now. So I find that really
Right. I
interesting.
can put bread on my table and consider, go after my passion.
Right.
So
The other the other
absolutely.
the other thing I will say too with their genre, we talk about pop punk a lot. We both enjoy it. Josh enjoys it too.
Oh yeah.
How do you in that genre? I was thinking of this when I was listening to them because I liked everything I listened to. It was catchy, it's good,
Oh yeah.
but it didn't like really like stand way out. So in the genre of pop punk, because I don't feel like there's a whole lot of room to breathe. How do you stand out in that
It's
genre?
pretty hard to.
So I don't know, but it's still good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my listen. This one, obviously, because they didn't have any full length albums, because I usually try to go for the full lengths when you give me these bands. Um, but this time I just went with, I started off, number one popular song, and just kind of let it go from there. And I got pretty deep before I realized what was going on. I was like, oh, I've been listening to this band for a while now. Okay. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's kind of what I
I
did. Is
would
I
definitely
found
give
them
them a
on one
lot
of
more.
those musical adventures,
Mhm.
and suddenly I put it on that top one because there's no full lengths to go with, and I just let it roll. And I
Yeah.
come back a couple hours. Oh, I'm still rolling. That's pretty good.
The other thing too, with the possibility of, what I was saying of their choice of how they do the music and everything like that, and not touring too far abroad. Maybe that's why they're sticking to just do singles and EPs, because it's just more budget friendly that way too. Um,
Right. You're not
so
paying for all that studio time.
right, yeah, which you can still do, kind of the creative thing of like what you're doing here with their last two EPs of, well, Find Me Here Part One, and now we're releasing Find Me Here Part Two. Could they be releasing Find Me Here Part Three soon? You know,
Oh,
I mean, that's kind of cool. I mean, that gets me interested, so that catches my attention. But yeah, I definitely recommend giving this band a listen as well. You got anything else for High Wire?
I was going to say if it's been done before in many ways. Like you said, there's not a lot of breathing room left in this type of genre. Uh, I was trying to think like that. I don't know. There's just something about it that caught me, kind of took me back a little bit, but it's new all the same. I'm experiencing it for the first time again. And that's what I really enjoyed about it. I was like, this is pretty great. Like it took me back to 2005 or whatever, when this was like the sound. You
Right,
had your yellow cards, you had your whatevers, and it was all like this. And your yellow cards and your, I guess, Fallout Boys a little bit after, but you had all that kind of sound. But
right,
this is like, and I was really trying to pinpoint it. This is like several different bands from that era kind of mashed together, but it's enough that it did catch my attention. Because what I'm finding with a lot of newer pop punk bands, they're rough, and then they try to be unnecessarily edgy a lot of times. We talked about one here. Was it a Void, I believe?
mm,
I mean, they're fun to listen to. They're really fun live. He's got that West Coast hardcore aesthetic, wearing the shirts and
yeah.
stuff like he does. But his lyrics do come off unnecessarily edgy a lot of times. And these guys aren't that way. It's just a little more chill, a little more
Well,
family
it's
friendly, I guess you could say
yeah, and
too.
but it feels like when I listen to bands like this pop punk, it's like it's a positive. It feels light. It
Right.
feels colorful. Whereas, yeah, something like a Void feels, I think more Calicore. I think more, kind of
Right. That's a good way to put that.
stick to your guns type stuff. You're going to talk about in this next episode too, but I think kind of along the lines kind of Mugshot a little bit too. Kind of that, we're wearing the beanies and the flannel shirts,
Yeah.
and it's dark, and everything like that. But yeah, so alrighty, check that band out, Highwire. You haven't seen them though, right? I mean, again, we
I
talked
have not
about.
seen
It
them.
seems like
This
they've
is
been in
one I just
Chicago.
kind of
Came across.
right. Yeah. I just stumbled
Okay.
across this one. I was like, that's pretty good actually.
Okay.
So well worth a
Okay.
try.
Cool. Well, alrighty. I've got another band too. I don't know if I want to say well worth your try, but it's. I mean, give them a shot. They've got their place in history here, and I'm talking about the band known as Arma Angelus. As always, Eric, I'd like to start off with two basic questions to gauge your history and knowledge of the band that we're talking about. So, how were you introduced to the band known as Arma Angelus?
Let's see here. It's this podcast. It's called History of the Cores, and it's pretty neat. But I
Hmm.
heard about him on that. I thought that's a neat one.
I've never heard of
That
this
being
podcast before.
jokes aside, I did once upon a
Where?
time hear somebody who
No,
was
go ahead.
really
Go
into
ahead.
Pete Wentz said, "Oh yeah, he was in a heavier band back before Fallout Boy." I was like, "Okay, whatever," but never listened to it or gave it a chance because I don't know. I'm not a fangirl, so Pete Wentz never really appealed to me.
We I
Ah,
say we talk about fangirl core on with the drugs episode and the Isles and Glaciers episode. This is
right.
kind of a different faction of fangirl core, I feel like. At least no, not Arma Angelus, but what Fallout Boy ends up being. I don't know.
Right.
That feels different than what I'm describing as fangirl core in Isles and Glaciers and drugs. But
Right. No, no, no. I'm saying like the fangirls were all about Pete Wentz back in the
right,
day.
right. Yeah. No.
It's not
I'm
fangirl
with you on
core
that.
necessarily. It's just Pete Wentz was the pinnacle. It was
We're
pasted in every
fangirls.
locker around every
Yes.
corner, you know.
The eyeliner and the
So
stringy black hair in his face.
the swoopy
Yeah.
hair with the flippy.
Bring back the swoop. Bring back the swoop. How would you describe Arma Angelus to a brand new listener, Eric?
I kind of went with a time period thinking here, so bear with me here. Think about that transitional early period between hardcore and metalcore. It's kind of right in there somewhere,
Okay.
especially for the main or the full length album. It's just
Right.
right in that area. So that's kind of
Okay.
how I describe it. It is of its time for sure, but yeah, somewhere in that transition between hardcore and metalcore, and it exhibits a little bit of both, but it's
Hmm.
not 100% of either one.
Okay.
Because you
All
get your
right.
hardcore holler and yelling, you get your metalcore riffs, especially in the EP.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind
Okay.
of where I'd put it.
Cool.
It's of that time. It's right there somewhere in between.
Gotcha. It's in the unknown of the early 2000s. Yeah. We talked about not just with this band, but a couple others that um, we've talked about in over the last couple of episodes of this time period really kind of sounding like Zayo because it felt like Zayo was really coming on at that time. Everybody kind of wanted to have that sound too. And I'm not saying Arma sounds exactly like Zayo, but I think they're kind of grouped into that too, where we're trying to kind of capture the same sound a little bit too, but at the same time kind of put our own little twist on it too, because these guys
Right.
did come from straight up hardcore bands too to start Arma Angelus. So I think you're kind of trying to combine the two there. We
Yep.
already know how big of a Fallout Boy fan you are, Eric. You've already mentioned it. You're a huge fan, huge with
Woo!
big quotes around a huge fan. Yeah. Um,
Huge.
but huge. There you go. It's huge. We're gonna build a wall around this band. It's gonna be huge. Um, so thanks a lot. You distracted me. Dang it,
Welcome.
no. Well, the bad thing is like when I start doing that impression, like I can't stop. I want to do more because it's just so fun to do, man. I said,
Yep.
"Wow, this band was good. This band's good. It's really good."
The
But
best, even the best,
putting
I'd say.
it's the best. I said, "Wow, they're the best. They're the best." Yeah. I said they're going to be huge. So anyway, throwing that non-fandom aside, is it strange just knowing what we know about Fall Out Boy's popularity over the years, especially when we were younger growing up? You know,
Oh yeah.
a night out with whatever that one was called. I can't remember what that was called. Anyway, Under the Court Tree, so on and so forth. All those albums, it's their peak. It was really shooting them off into the sky.
Right.
Anyway, is it strange knowing where that was taking them over the years, and now knowing that Arma Angelus was really kind of their humble beginnings, or I might also say like a stepping stone, kind of like what we've been talking about before.
Yeah, it is pretty strange thinking about it. So I'm not a huge fan, but I'm familiar with like Under the Cork Tree. Definitely had a couple good ones there. Infinity on High had a couple good ones there too. Uh, Probably the big ones you used to hear on the radio is probably about what I got. But
Yeah.
It is really wild, honestly. This one spawned not only Fall Out Boy, but pretty much Rise Against too, and a couple other
Ah,
smaller-ish ones too. But
yeah,
it's just so weird because they both kind of went on a different direction. I mean, Rise Against kind of stuck with this sound a little bit more for
right.
longer,
Yes,
like
yeah, I agree.
that first full length or two kind of had that sound to it. Tim did go on at one point and split off and did his own little side project with a
Oh,
metalcore band
really?
too. So he kind of kept
Okay,
this sound a little longer.
okay.
Yeah, let me pull it up. It is
Hmm.
called The Killing Tree.
Oh, okay. I feel like I've at least heard that name.
They
Okay,
got like a
interesting.
1,500 monthly listeners. So you
Okay,
and 1,499 of your friends.
there you go, man. There you go. Okay, well, I had a trivia question. He basically already answered it, but I'll go ahead and say it again. We know after about the forming of Fall Out Boy out of the ashes of Arma's disbanding, but before the band would release their debut album, their bassist would leave to work on his other project, which would become what popular punk rock band, Eric?
Rise Against.
Ooh, wrong. Wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's right. That is right. It's still interesting to think that the unclean vocals are Pete Wentz. Now, me and Josh
That's
talked about
that's
it.
pretty wild.
There's
Yeah.
right. There's some screams here and there on early Fall Out Boy stuff. He's even featured on an Every Time I Die song on New Junk Aesthetic. You want to check out the Every Time I Die episodes from the History of the Chorus or even the After Hours podcast, go check them out. But yeah, it's strange to me because mainly I grew up, on those mainstream songs like you were talking about a Fall Out Boy, and the fact again
Right.
that every girl seemed to have a huge crush on Pete Wentz. What is your thoughts on his unclean vocal style?
Like, honestly, if I didn't know this was him, it's actually not that bad. Um, they're pretty good. Low end mids is kind of where I'd put them. They are full bodied. They're not like hollow, like a lot of this at this time could feel pretty hollow. Um, oh, I think we're going to talk about it in Martyr, but one of your reviewers talks about the skinny guy at Metal Fest or whatever.
Yeah.
That describes a lot of these. And these guys are not that. It's not the skinny guy trying to holler as best he can with that kind of high undertones that are kind of a little
I haven't
icky,
hit
if
puberty
I'm being
yet.
honest. Yeah,
Right.
that. So his
Okay.
are not that way. Actually, pretty solid, honestly.
Okay. Do you feel that way about, I mean, because obviously we get a demo, but the demo doesn't count. Do you feel that way about from the EP and the full length album?
Pretty much. Of course, the
Okay.
EP's a little bit rawer, but I mean, it's solid.
What's happening?
Bah.
Uh, what is that noise? I hear something. It sounds like a printer. Oh, nope.
I
Never
don't
mind.
know.
Never mind. Never mind. Disregard. That's on my headphones. I
Oh,
forgot I chased.
I was like,
I forgot the music was still playing. I seriously, dude, it sounded like a printer going. I was like, is there a printer going off at your house? What's happening, man?
yeah.
These are the crazy shenanigans that you'll get on the After Hours podcast. And if you're just getting this on the After Hours podcast, what in the world are you getting on the regular History of the Chorus podcast? Who knows? Check it out. Yeah, I asked that because I felt like, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. I think actually probably this next one, so we may just go ahead and you know what? Let's just go on to this next one because it's basically going to be on this next one. Oh, but the one thing I do want to say about my thoughts on his unclean vocals, I do feel like I'm with you too. He doesn't feel like what we get described, on Martyr AD, the skinny, guy. They do sound
Yeah.
tough. They do sound, pretty full.
Right. Yeah.
But I will say on the full length, his unclean speaking vocals, not so much, at least to me.
The kind of the hollering ish stuff.
Kind of, yeah, is
Yeah.
like the one I think it's the second song where he's like, "We are the pale horse," something, and it's like, oh, but I wondered too if like because they like layer that, and I'm wondering if they did it that way to kind of make it like have an unsettling sound, which would go with that album artwork, especially for that time period too, because we've talked about
Right.
unsettling stuff from that time period. Anyway, so let's carry on here, and we'll talk a little more about what I was trying to get at here in just a second. The band gives us one demo, Personal is Political, an EP, The Grave End of the Shovel, and a full-length album where sleeplessness is rest from nightmares. The demo is, well, a demo. If you want to check that out, it's on YouTube. Here's where Josh and I had an interesting discussion, though, Eric. The EP feels more mature to us, whereas the full length felt like it took a step back. Now with the EP, Josh wasn't, too impressed with the guitar riffs. He did talk about, it seemed disconnected, without purpose, seemed very basic, so on and so forth. Yeah, whatever. But we both did agree that it felt like altogether the EP felt like it's just kind of weird because like usually if you get this setup where it's like it's an EP and then you're following it with a full length, it's usually like a rise from that EP to the full length. Whereas this felt like EP's here and the full length kind of went down. I almost wonder because they lose some members in between the two albums. One of them being Tim Micklerath, who goes on does Rise Against, but he's playing bass, whatever. But he is doing clean vocals. There's not a whole lot of them, but there are a few on there, and it sounds like Tim Micklerath. I will say that for sure, and I liked it. But I wondered how much, and I told Josh this. I wondered how much he contributed to the songwriting, and maybe even like guitar work too. So I wonder maybe if that's kind of like a part of like what we're feeling with that. Um, but Eric, we don't care what me and Josh think, right? Because it's the after hours. We want to know what you're the star here. I'm merely just the guide on this tour of Eric's life. We want to know what you think about the transition from the EP to the full length album and how you feel about each one on their own.
So they're both pretty young. They're both pretty raw. I feel like this is a transition that's typical of a band with a lot of turnover.
Mhm.
Overall, the LP, the long play, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
the full length album is heavier. It has less singing and more of those hardcore type yells that we were talking about,
Mhm.
that kind of speaking ish,
Yeah.
but not. But
Unsettled
anyway,
speaking yell.
yeah, that stuff,
Yeah.
which makes it feel heavier. I mean, just a wee bit.
Okay.
I do think the EP feels a little bit more mature. For me, that just might be due to the fact it's a little bit more well rounded,
Yeah.
kind of a mix between the singing and the screaming and a little bit of hollering in there. But I think they're both decent on their own. I don't think anything here is going to be my next favorite that I'm going to go ham on for the next 6 months, but both are solid,
He's
especially for the time
binging.
they came out. I mean,
So you're telling me you're
we
not
got
going
to
to go.
binge.
You telling me you're not going full Josh with Coheed and Cambria?
There's not enough to do that here, but
Oh my goodness, man! What'd you listen to this week, Josh? Coheed and Cambria. Oh, of course you did. Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not going to be my favorite, but it's not bad.
yeah. I just
It's,
feel like if
it is
I,
of the era.
right, I just feel like if I went into it not knowing, you gave me these two albums, and it was just kind of a blind listen. I listened to both of them just randomly, didn't have to be in order or whatever. And if and then somebody said, "Okay, tell me which album came first," I would honestly probably say the full length came first. And I almost like describe his vocals at times and just even like the overall sound of that full length to like something a band in high school would make. Like one of your first bands, and not to like to hate on it. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not a big fan of it. If you're a fan of it, cool, it's whatever. But especially his vocals sounds like, man, oh, that full length, that's all Josh said. Sounds like the dude that you knew in high school is like, you got the band, you're like, man, we really need a vocalist. And there's this guy, he's like, "Whoa, I'll do it." You know, you're like, "Okay, here, have the microphone." He gets on there like, "Oh, I don't want to hurt this guy's feelings, but this is not good, man." At least for this point, he might mature and he might get better, but this is not good right now, man. And I think Josh contributed. What do you say? Have you considered the tambourine? That was good. That was good. Maybe you might try something a little more on your scale. Would you like to try the triangle? We have one over here if you'd like to try it. It's not very hard. Just got to hit it like this. Ding. No.
I also
So
have
anyway.
the electric triangle for those who you don't want to play more than once.
Don't shock yourself though, okay? Yeah.
Zzz.
Anyway, that's just kind of how we felt. But yeah, I'm with you too. This is not something that I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna binge it. No, I'm good. I'm good, man. Good.
But it's also not an assault on my earbuds.
Right, exactly. It's not like falling in reverse. I'm gonna move on. I like, and I didn't even say this in the last episode when I brought them up. That's cool that you like their first, full length album or whatever, right? Didn't you like that? Isn't that what you said? Am I
I
misquoting you?
tried to like it.
You tried to like it. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going through this again. Anyway, so
Yeah.
before we finish up with your favorites here, Eric, I almost called you album. Album? What's your favorite,
I am
Eric?
album.
Eric album. All right. We're gonna finish up with the trivia question before we get to that. What guitarist, Eric, who we've cited as a producer many times, if not the most, on the History of the Chorus podcast, produced both Arma's EP and full-length album? I will give you a hint. He is from a popular, well, I don't know if they're still popular, but at least back in like I'm gonna say mid 2000s to like early teens was their peak probably. So it's not just some like random schmo Joe.
Let's see. Is it Dunkowitz comes to mind?
Oh, you got it, buddy. You got it. Adam
Yes.
Dukowitz from Killswitch Engage. Very nice, man. Very nice. Alrighty,
Once in a while I get it.
Let's wrap up this episode with our traditional favorites. Album, songs, lyrics, riffs, artwork, so on and so forth. Take it away, Eric.
As far as favorite album,
That's not a good start. Eh.
well, I have a problem calling it favorite album. The EP kind of edges out just a little bit, but it's not an album.
Right.
But I don't know.
It's an album if you want it to be.
Then we'll call it the EP.
Hey, Eric, we're living in 2024. You can easily blind the lines of truth. Okay.
That's true. This is my truth, and that EP is an album. So
if you want the sky to be red, you can call it red if you want. And I have to respect your right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. America. Yeah. Anyway, carrying on. Hey, well, the personal is political. Anyway.
There you go. Speaking of America, I've got some lyrics for you. Ready?
Let's hear it.
I can't escape this world, but I will deny it.
Ooh.
And yet these smiling husks, I am just a fool, but I can no longer find the warmth to forgive those who bear such a likeness to smoldering ash. That was once their will. I am every broken man, leaving you broken.
Ah,
you can judge by the last line there. That is from I am every broken man.
Every broken man. Nice. Cool, man. Cool.
And before we get into the top songs, I Am Every Broken Man is kind of an extra there. So like a number 4. I like it, but I don't necessarily like that the cover is attached to it.
Yeah. Detach it.
Yeah,
detach.
Yeah. Please and thank
honorable mention.
Yep, there's your honorable mention right there.
Yep. Number 3.
Number 3. To feel no more bitterness forever.
Ooh, so poetic. So poetic. Snap, snap,
Let's
snap,
see,
snap,
that one
snap.
is. That one's from the album. It's the.
What,
What number is
the
that?
third or fourth song?
Yeah, it's the fourth song.
Okay. Yeah, I was
I was
thinking
trying to
it was
remember
pretty
where
early
that
in
was
the
on the album. There's this
Yeah.
little run there, about 3 songs in a row, and I was like, that's actually kind of good. Just this block. I was like, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And this next one may or may not come from that little block. Are you ready?
Number 2. Bad burp.
Very nice. Is We Are the Pale Horse. Which
We
is number
are the
2
pale
there.
horse.
So we got the Pale Horse, the golly, whatever that word is, for the exploitation of human civilization.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm,
And then To
what
Feel
he
No
said.
Bitterness Forever. So that's
That's
just a little block that I actually
that's the
kind of
run,
enjoyed
okay.
on the main album. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Number 1.
This one's from the EP. I went with Victoria,
Ooh, yes.
which I believe is the 4th song on that one. It was a pretty good
Okay.
song. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Beautiful name. Beautiful name. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I dated a girl
I
named
did
Victoria. Uh-huh.
Uh-oh.
You remember her?
Now
She went to
she's
your
listening.
school. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh. I'm going to dig up the yearbook.
No. Don't do it. Don't do it. Cool.
But yeah, that was a
Alrighty.
pretty good song. I enjoyed it. I am definitely a fan of Tim. So
Yeah. Alrighty. Final thoughts on the band known as Arma Angelus.
it's not the worst band there ever were. That's for sure. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. But I don't know. Honestly, lyrically, they're not bad. Sound wise, they're not awful either. It's just almost like this is something that left in the past, maybe for a reason.
Leave it.
We've talked about before. Some bands come and go for good reasons. This is one of those. Without this band, you probably wouldn't have got Fall Out Boy, probably wouldn't have got, trying to think of that other one, the little one. Anyway, Rise Against too is the other one, but there's a couple other smaller ones that are actually still somewhat influential. They stick around for several years. But I think there's 4 bands total that split off from this one band.
I think so.
And like I said, 2 that rings bells in everybody's ears. But if you do want to listen to, you think about going back, trying to listen to all the stuff from Tim, all the stuff from Pete Wentz, go back and listen to this, listen through it, see where they were at that point in time. It's a neat history lesson, if nothing else.
I agree. Some bands come and go. Some fans just don't know. Alrighty. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at @IsSurviveByPro. That rhymed also. Hey, oh my gosh. Oh wow. That was that last part was not planned. Follow us on Twitter at @IsSurviveByPro for news and the latest episode postings, not just on this show, people. We got other shows as well. We got the History of the Cores podcast where me and Josh take a band from the Cores genre. We put it under the microscope and we examine it. Look at all that bacteria on that band. All right. We also have the Red Right Hand podcast, which has covered all 6 seasons. Eventually, the movie about the Peaky Blinders. We also have the Throne of the Dragon podcast, which has covered season 1, season 2, and next summer, season 1. Let me back up. We've covered season 1 and season 2 of HBO's House of the Dragon, and next summer we'll be covering season 1 of HBO's Knights of the Seven Kingdoms. Also, while you're on Twitter, make sure to follow my co-host at Josh Will and Gary. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review and write us a comment on whatever podcast service you're using. And if you want to listen to us and see our smiling faces, head on over to our YouTube page. Just search Is Survived by Productions. That'll have every episode from all of our shows. Subscribe to the channel. And that's it. You don't have to do anything else. No, thumbs up the video while you're at it. Like that. Alrighty, until the next episode where we're talking about a metalcore band from Minnesota known as Martyr AD. We'll see ya.